Hey there, folks! If you want to stay updated with the latest stories and analysis, make sure to follow S News. And you know it really helps us out if you subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot to us. The country that once claimed to be the most powerful force in the Middle East is now falling apart from within. Thousands of its soldiers are suffering from psychological issues. Teenagers have burned their military draft papers, and the coalition government is on the verge of collapse. As external threats grow more intense, the people and even the army are turning against the government's orders. Netanyahu, once hailed as a saviour, is now under pressure to step down. He's being chased by the courts, and his political allies are slowly abandoning him. Ironically, Israel isn't falling because of enemy attacks. It's collapsing because it no longer believes in itself. Israel is now facing the most serious internal crisis in its history, with waves of civil and military resistance shaking the very foundations of the state. According to Afif, thousands of citizens filled the roads stretching from Sandra Field to the US Embassy, demanding the Sandra Exchange Agreement, which clearly calls for a comprehensive deal with Hamas. This wasn't just a protest, it was a cry of desperation. The families of the Sandras, along with those who were released, are pleading with Netanyahu and Trump to act to save those still trapped in Gaza. One of the hostages, Doron Steinbrecher, who survived 471 days in captivity, even called on both leaders to make Israel great again. The slogan sounds harsh, but it's dripping with irony. Israel is falling apart from the inside. Amid the sea of protests, a new symbol of resistance has emerged, teenagers burning their military draft letters. Widely circulated video clips show young people refusing to join the Israeli army, chanting, "We will not be part of genocide. We will not serve an apartheid regime." This movement is adding more pressure, especially as former soldiers start speaking out. Two reservists recently deployed to Gaza publicly refused to return to combat, saying the war is no longer about protecting the people. It's just being used to prolong Netanyahu's grip on power. Now, even inside the Israeli military, the pressure is rising. Recent reports reveal that 4 Israeli soldiers committed suicide in just the past 2 weeks, including one from the Nahal Brigade. Since the war began, 43 soldiers have taken their own lives. Most were suffering from psychological disorders like PTSD and severe depression. The Israeli Ministry of Defense is now under heavy scrutiny for how poorly it has handled the mental health of its soldiers. Rehab centers are overwhelmed, and mental health support is barely available on the front lines. This crisis has exposed more than just the failure of military strategy. It's also eroding the legitimacy of the Israeli. The Druze community, long seen as one of Israel's most loyal minorities, has now joined the rebellion. Hundreds of Druze reportedly crossed the border into Syria through the Matz checkpoint, and large-scale protests erupted against the Israeli army. Clashes with the military became inevitable. Their anger exploded after Israel claimed it attacked Syrian land to protect the Druze, but instead ended up killing more than 300 people in Swaida. Rather than calming things down, Netanyahu's actions only deepened the wounds and sped up the internal opposition. This wave of protest has gone beyond normal political tension. It's a sign of internal collapse, as the people, the army, and even the most loyal minorities lose faith in the state. Now, the question isn't whether Israel is in crisis, but how close it is to complete breakdown. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is standing on shaky political ground. His coalition in the Knesset has lost support, now holding only 61 out of 120 seats after the conservative United Torah Party withdrew its backing, followed by the ultra-Orthodox Shas Party. Losing these 2 key pillars has forced Netanyahu to rely on far-right groups like Smotrich and Ben Gvir, who firmly reject any compromise, especially a ceasefire with Hamas. Israel's political tensions have reached a boiling point. Opposition leaders like Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz and Avigdor Lieberman have slammed Netanyahu's government, accusing it of failing to maintain stability and destroying national morale. They've accused Netanyahu of deliberately using the war as a political tool, delaying early elections until October 2026 just to cling to power. Under pressure from opposition forces, legal cases related to alleged corruption, and the threat of summons from the International Criminal Court, Netanyahu's position is growing increasingly fragile. The loss of support from ultra-conservative groups has stripped him of his majority and nearly pushed him to the brink of collapse. But this isn't just a fight over seats, it's a clash of ideologies. Jewish religious parties rejected the draft law requiring military service for students in religious schools, a sensitive issue that has caused deep divisions. For ultra-Orthodox parties, studying the Torah is considered a valid contribution to society. But for the general public, this exemption has become an unfair burden that people are no longer willing to tolerate. Amid this tension, Netanyahu has been trying to pull his coalition back together. He's been urging ultra-Orthodox factions to hold off on stirring unrest until the summer recess, while quietly reaching out to independent and moderate right-wing lawmakers in hopes of preserving a slim majority in the Knesset. But that's becoming harder as internal party pressures mount and opposition continues to grow stronger. Some members of Netanyahu's own party have started to question the direction of government policy, especially concerning the Gaza war and the issue of military conscription. Meanwhile, the opposition has seized on these divisions, pushing for a no-confidence vote, demanding new elections and intensifying efforts to bring down Netanyahu's coalition altogether. In the middle of this internal political chaos, Netanyahu escalated airstrikes in Syria and ordered the Israeli army to protect the Druze community, something he framed as critical to maintaining constitutional support. That military action led to a pause in his testimony before the Tel Aviv Criminal Court, citing a military emergency. Many saw this as a tactic to distract public attention and present a tough image under pressure. But to the military and some analysts, his response seemed emotional and reactive. While some on the right praised it, others criticized it as nothing more than a political stunt, not a genuine act of national defense. Now Netanyahu finds himself fighting on two fronts, an internal political crisis within a fragile coalition and mounting legal troubles, alongside controversial military operations that are stirring up international concern. If the opposition holds together and minority support continues to decline, it may only be a matter of time before the government collapses and early elections are called. Israel's current crisis isn't just about internal politics or its long-standing conflict with Palestine. External pressure has made things worse, especially from Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. In June 2025, Iran launched a massive retaliatory strike on Israel after a previous Israeli operation caused major destruction. Even though the government claimed a historic victory, the reality on the ground was much grimmer. Israel's Ministry of Health reported 29 deaths and over 3,200 injuries. More than 1,000 buildings were damaged, including vital infrastructure in Tel Aviv, Haifa and Be'er Sheva, deepening the national sense of insecurity. The economic toll of the Iranian strike hit Israel hard. Direct damages were estimated at around 5 billion shekels, while indirect losses and military costs topped 20 billion shekels, pushing the national budget to a critical point. Things got worse when military censorship tried to hide the scale of the damage, including hits on key military facilities and even Netanyahu's office in the Kiryat, which now needs 4 months of repairs. This media blackout only worsened public distrust in the government. Meanwhile, tensions in the Red Sea are also heating up. Iran-backed Hizb al-Tahrir forces struck Israeli shipping lanes, shutting down the Adt port entirely and halting most of the country's imports and exports. Port revenues dropped by 80%, triggering a domino effect in sectors like logistics and the auto industry, adding more pressure to an already fragile economy. Internationally, Israel is facing serious accusations over its actions in Gaza. The humanitarian crisis has pushed nearly the entire population into famine, with prices skyrocketing by 4,000%. This isn't seen as just a side effect of war, but as part of a deliberate military strategy to cripple the resilience of the Palestinian people. Access to food, water and aid has become a bargaining chip, what many analysts and human rights activists now describe as a crime against humanity. This strategy not only damages Israel's global image, but also worsens Netanyahu's situation at home. His coalition is looking more unstable by the day. Public dissatisfaction and political infighting are growing inside his party and among his partners. If this internal conflict isn't resolved soon, new elections may be inevitable. On top of all that, Netanyahu is facing serious legal threats. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant against him, accusing him of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including using starvation as a weapon of war. And the corruption case, which had been delayed for months, is now re-emerging, posing a fresh threat to his political future. Amid economic turmoil, legal challenges and external pressure, Israel stands at a dangerous crossroads. What began as a show of strength is now shaping up to be a turning point, one that could define the country's political and moral future. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay updated, don't forget to follow S News and check out our future videos. It'd mean a lot if you subscribe, like, and leave a comment down.